Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the budget hearing meeting. Today's Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. It's 2:01 p.m. Nebraska open meeting rules are on the north wall of the boardroom. And we have all 5 commissioners present, Commissioner Burmeister, Klug, Warren, Mixon, and Kelly. We have our county administrator, Dan Hoynes, and our county clerk and register of deeds, Deb Houghtaling. If you would, silence your cell phones and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Okay. One item on the agenda today, the regular agenda, is a public hearing for our fiscal year 2023 proposed budget. We're going to receive a presentation from our Chief Financial Officer, Bill Conley. Bill, welcome.
Good afternoon. As required by state statute, this is the annual presentation of the proposed budget. It's been an interesting and long budget season. We started back in April, and today we present and have a public hearing on the proposed budget for the fiscal year that we're now almost 2 months into. And so I want to make a couple caveats. First of all, the valuation information we received less than 24 hours ago, and we've gone through a number of iterations trying to run this thing through, and thanks to the clerk's office, we actually had a rounding issue that we had to modify in the last couple hours. So it's still slightly changing. I am confident that the budget that is being proposed today is materially correct. We might have some tweaks that we will need to iron out in the next few days. And secondly, I want to thank all the people throughout the county for their work on the budget, and in particular the great team that I get to work with every day, Michaela and Jenny in the fiscal office, and they make my life so much easier, so I appreciate them for all they do. And so with that, I apologize in advance that you have to hear me speak for a while. I will try to go as fast as I can. I've given you handouts. There are handouts for anybody in the room that would like them, either outside or Jenny has extra copies if you'd like them to study later on tonight if you can't fall asleep or whatever. So I'm going to try to go fairly quick or as quick as I can, but I do want to make sure that we tell the story of the budget. I think any budget has a story, and you'll find that I'm going to be repetitive in a few themes, and so there's a reason for that. I want to kind of make sure you understand the overall story. This slide 2, shows the changes from what was filed with the clerk's office on approximately July 29th. We filed what we call level 3 budget with the clerk as required by the statute before August 1st. And you can see the budget today, the revenues have changed by about $600,000, and obviously the expenses do as well because we have to have a balanced budget. Some pretty nominal changes. We looked at some of the revenue categories and made some adjustments. We did, as noted on the bottom of this slide, modify the property taxes by $42,000. That's included up above in the $602,000. So what's the headline? I don't like to bury, Deanna and I always often say, don't bury the lead. So I don't want to bore you for 45 minutes and you go, what was the story? I think the story is in front of you right here. What is before you and will be before the board to vote on a week from today is the largest budget in the history of Sarpy County at nearly $300 million. It'll be the lowest tax levy since at least 1985. Perhaps significantly further back than that. I just don't know. I didn't have time to look any further. So, but it's a lowering of the tax levy. It includes critical funding for the new correctional center coming online in January of 2023. And as part of that, 33 new FTEs, I think 30 of those are related to the new correctional center. 26 of those are related to the new correctional center. It's right in front of me. It includes wage increases for all employees and significant funding for road projects that are facilitating continued growth in the county. So I think that's a pretty powerful statement for this budget, and it shows the financial strength of the county. So the next few slides are going to kind of show what's the budget compared to last year. So the highlighted in the tan there is the proposed budget for 2023. $152 million in cash, beginning cash, $137 million in revenue, and then that totals $289 million, and then the expenses is the same, $289 million. As I will just remind you, we have about 41 funds. We have a general fund and then 40 other funds, and I'll group those. I won't go through each one of them, but we'll talk a little bit about them. So we'll walk down this slide a little bit. The cash, $151 million, compares to $94 million a year ago. So why are we up? Primarily, we are up because we have $59 million from the bond that we sold for the highway allocation pledge bond. This is the first bond that I'm aware of that the county has ever taken the proceeds in-house. We usually park them at a bond trustee, UBT, and then we have to request that they pay bills. This is a bond, and we can do it. We just took the bond proceeds in-house, and so when we need to pay expenses out of this, we can just do it ourselves with board approval. So $59 million of that increase, so that really accounts for all of it. You can see the other increases there. ARPA funds are up a little bit because we got the second phase of ARPA money. You can see sinking fund is down because we spent that on the construction of the new jail and so on. I won't go into each of those in detail. This is a chart that I look at quite a bit. I certainly look at it every month, and you're probably going, what is that? But it shows me the cash balance in the general fund by month going through our fiscal year. So July on the left to June on the right, and it's a pretty consistent trend. And you can see that we ended the year with nearly $27 million in general fund cash, and that was up about $1 million over the prior year. Back on the big picture, our revenue budget for the upcoming year, $137 million. That's down just about $10 million from the budget for the prior year. And why are we down? Well, all of that is explained by the fact that we have less ARPA money coming in. We have gotten our two phases, the two payments of ARPA money, $18.5 million or so over the last 2 years. So we won't be getting another payment, so that's why that's down. And then property taxes are scheduled in this budget to go up $3.8 million. So we're talking about a lower levy, but more property tax dollars for the county. I'll talk a lot more about that in a little bit.
Bill, I'm sorry, I just want to ask one question. I just want to go back just a little bit. I was, I guess, too busy eating my budgeted Cheez-Its. But the money from the bond that came in-house, you don't have to go back to the number. The question is this: when it stayed with a trustee or whatever, were we receiving interest on that money, or did we not? And because when we brought it in-house...
We did. We did receive interest at UBT, and we do receive interest now.
Right.
And the treasurer, I really appreciate the efforts of the treasurer's office here. They have put it in I believe a separate account. I don't know if that's true, but they are definitely investing the funds, and we get the interest applied to the road fund.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking we probably have more control on that investment and everything, and hopefully, when we have it in-house, that we could make more money off the interest than maybe prior.
Yeah, I don't know if it's more or less, but it is certainly interest-bearing.
Okay, thank you.
So the total of our cash and revenue is $289 million. This pie chart, you have to have pie charts, I think, as part of the budget presentation. This shows the allocation of that between cash, property tax, local revenue, state revenue, and federal. I won't go through each of those. And then we'll flip to the expense side. So expenses have to equal cash and revenue, so we have a budget of $289 million. And so that is up $47 million from last year. And so what are the reasons for that? The general fund is up about $10 million in expenses. $3 million of that is for 33 new FTEs with benefits. We increased I'm going to talk a little bit about that today at this meeting and then at the next meeting as well, if you approve it. We've modified our budgetary reserve policy. We've proposed a modification to the budgetary reserve policy. We have not changed the budgetary reserve here at the counties since 2018, and so it's been sitting at $6.8 million. In the meantime, our expenditure budget has gone up 37%. So the proposal, this budget proposes increasing the budgetary reserve to $9.5 million, which is an increase of 37%. So it just catches us up to where we should be. Capital projects are down about $1 million in the general fund. We had a big, a lot of projects in the last year with the courthouse. And then all other was about $6.3 million throughout all the different departments. And at your desk, I provided a report that shows all the departments in the general fund, so you can look at that as well to see any of the fluctuations. Public Works funds are up $55 million. The reason there, again, the story is the bond proceeds. Primarily that accounts for almost all of that. Sinking funds are down $10.2 million, and that's because of the fact that we have spent money on the correctional center, and so we're kind of winding down the sinking fund. That was a really useful tool to minimize the debt that we had to incur on the correctional center project, which, by the way, this board, you guys, you built an $80 million facility, and we financed it with $40 million of bonds because of the sinking fund, because of ARPA. That's really setting the table going forward for this county financially. And grant funds are down $14.5 million, and that's also due to ARPA not being prevalent next year. So this table shows, again, all the funds that we have, the 41 funds grouped into about 13 different categories, really the same story as I just highlighted on the previous slide. And then this shows expenses by activity. Kind of shows you where the majority of the funds are going between roads, general government, and so on. I'll jump ahead to budget highlights. This is kind of part two of the headlines, a little more detailed than the headlines, but the overall levy is recommended to be lowered to 0.28496. It's, again, the lowest in the last 38 years. The valuation increase, which I'll show next, has increased 11.1%. That provides $3.8 million in increased property tax, even at that lower levy over the prior year. General fund, I mentioned the expenses in the general fund will go up 10.6%. We have a few capital expenditure projects in there that are of substance. We have about $5 million for the correctional center. In the general fund, we have about $3 million in the sinking fund, and we have continuation of the administration remodel in there as well. Public Works has tremendous funding, obviously, again, from the bond that we issued. We're not planning to spend all $59 million in the next year, but for budgetary purposes, we have to budget as if we will. So I don't know if Scott will get that done. Scott wants to get it all done. We're going to spend it all next year. No. So that should get us the next couple of years. Sinking fund decrease of $10.2 million due to using funds toward the correctional center project, and then grant funds, I mentioned the ARPA impact there. Just a brief comment on ARPA, and we're going to be talking a little bit about this at the board meeting a week from today, where we're going to have our next phase of projects before you to consider. But $25 million of the ARPA funds have been committed thus far, $25 million of the $36 million. And this just shows kind of a category, where have we spent money? And again, I compliment the board on using the funds in ways that are of tremendous benefit to the county, whether it's mental health, medical facilities, congregate living, all of those related to our correctional center, but public health, public safety, direct assistance to residents, direct assistance to nonprofits. So we've really kind of checked off a lot of the boxes. So let's talk valuation. The next few slides talk about valuations. The numbers that just came in show the total valuation of a little over just under $22 billion of assessed property in the county. That's an increase of 11.1%. And this is where it gets kind of fun, because the assessor now has two different growth factors that they have to provide. There's the original growth, and then there's real growth. And LB 644 limits our ability to raise or to levy property taxes based on the real growth percentage, which is in the middle there at 4.627%. And don't ask me to get into all the peculiarities of the differences between the two, but Dan Pittman is here and he would love to spend an hour or so on that. But it is complex. I would compliment Jackie and Dan for all the work they've done on this. It's really been a challenge. So you can see the breakout of the 11.1% is 4.2% in growth, the way it used to be determined, and 6.9% in terms of reappraisal. But from a levy standpoint, if we chose not to go to the LB 644 hearing in September, we can increase property tax dollars by the 4.63% highlighted there, plus 2%. So 6.63% of allowable growth under LB 644. And that accomplishes a lot, as you can see in the budget. This chart shows the annual valuation trends, again, continuing extremely strong growth for the county. And this one shows the total growth, 11.1%, highest on the chart. So highest in the last, 15 years shown there. So the property tax revenue included in the budget is an increase of $3.8 million over fiscal 2022. That is just under the 6.6% threshold for LB 644. The bottom part of this slide shows where we are putting the property tax dollars in our budget. So $58 million of that will go into the general fund. You see none of that going into the sinking fund in the upcoming year. Like I said earlier, we're phasing out of the sinking fund. We've got the money captured for the correctional center project. So we planned this all along, that when we got done with that, we would flip this money back over to the general fund. And you can see $6 million from last year flows into the general fund, which helps fund our operations. And then just under $3 million is levied for the correctional center bonds. So this chart shows the history of the levy going back to 2009-10, obviously the lowest levy in that period. Property tax impact for somebody that had a $200,000 house a year ago, with the levy reduction, they would, even though their assessed value might have gone up, if it went up on average 6.9%, their property taxes would go up only 2.6%. And we always like to point out, and I know the press release that Megan sent out today did a nice job of stating this, that property taxes for residents of Sarpy County really are dictated by other entities. The county levy is only about 12% of the total levy that you or I might pay in the county. This information on this slide is from a year or so ago, but the numbers have not changed much at all. So next steps. Next week at this meeting, we will ask for the adoption of this budget. We will continue to refine it and make sure that we haven't missed anything. And then there'll formally be a resolution to ask for adopting the budget and authorizing the additional 1% in budgeted restricted funds. That doesn't provide any more money. It gives us a little more headroom on the restricted funds calculation, which is another, call it another lid type mechanism for us as a county. On September 13th, you'll be asked to set the tax rate officially. And assuming we don't go to assuming if this budget is approved, we would not need to go to the LB 644 public hearing in September. Then by September 30th, we would file the budget with the state auditor. And that is all I had. I tried to go as fast as I could, and I guess at this point, I would open it up for questions you have of me, and then we also need to make sure we open it up for the public to provide comment or questions as well.
So, Bill, the expenses are up, and if I read your slide correctly, that's mostly in FTEs. Utilities, was that another area? What areas are those expenses primarily up in that are actual hard expenses? I know we've got reserves and things, but.
I guess this is the slide you're talking about.
So 33 new FTEs with benefits, are those primarily in the correctional center?
26 of those, I believe, are the correctional center at new FTEs, and then there are kind of obviously a variety of other departments have a new FTE.
And there were requests for more than that, right? So
There were requests for more than that. I'm brain dead on how many that we had, but maybe I don't know, were there maybe 8 or 10 more that were requested?
About 18, I think, total. So
you've tried on the budget committee to pair it to the absolutely necessary positions. And FTEs, those will be permanent expenses, right? So these expenses that you've factored in aren't likely to go down next year, I guess is what my question is.
Right, yeah, that's true.
And then taking the bond in-house, is that saving some expenses? Is that why that, is that another reason why that's done?
It does save a little bit of money. I mean, I don't think our trustee UBT has done a great job, and the savings are, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a year. It's not significant. Procedurally, it's helpful because every time we have an invoice or a claim that needs to be paid, we come to the board. You know, it's a separate agenda item. We get it approved. You have to sign something. We send it down to UBT to pay it. So procedurally, it'll make the ability to pay invoices quicker. And we've had instances with vendors on projects where the delay has been a problem for them. So we thought we'd try it on our own.
Perfect.
Questions?
I'd just like to thank Bill and your team for once again putting together a solid budget and breaking it down into PowerPoint presentation. While it's not a two-pager, is a good high-level overview of what we're doing. So yeah, thank you again for and your team for all the hard work behind this.
Probably not the guy to ask this to, but the real growth percentage, I mean, what comprises that? Is that a question for the assessor? 'Cause
I don't know if Dan wants, do you want to try?
Well, this is something new. We've always just, growth was growth. Growth was new stuff. And then they broke it out for LB 644. The definitions are broken out on the certification, which I don't have in my hand right now. I just came for the Board of Equalization to hear this. But If I attempted to give you the difference between growth and real growth, it would just be something I kind of made up and would mean nothing. So if I had it in front of me to read, I could recite it, but
Appreciate that.
So I guess the question I have, now that I know what real growth is or isn't, what if you don't have any real growth? What's the impact of LB 644 at that point?
Well, if there was no real growth, you still could add 2%.
Right?
Or any entity is always has the ability to go to the hearing.
Okay.
I mean, the hearing, you know, I don't view not going to the hearing as something that should be done at all costs. You know, so I think that may be something in the future that we plan to go. You know, it's not probably going to be something every year that we can lower the levy if we have as strong a growth as we've had this year.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, I would think with 93 counties, there's probably more than a large number of them that have no real growth, and their valuations aren't going up either, they're going down. So only two good things come out of that scenario. And none of them are going to make the local taxpayers happy, but it might make the folks down in Lincoln happy because they think they've accomplished something by putting these limitations on top of local governments who are probably better poised to know how to spend their money than,
But they could raise their levy and just go to the hearing.
yeah,
You know, that's.
okay. Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Appreciate all your hard work on this. Really done a great job. Does anybody else want to address the board on this? This is your chance, because we're going to tee it up for a vote next week, so. Anybody want to come up here and congratulate the board for lowering taxes? 4%? Yeah, I don't think my arm reaches that far, but no, I really want to thank the two commissioners on the budget committee. They helped steer this, obviously with the leadership of our CFO and his staff, to really one of the best budget hearings I think I've ever sat through from a commissioner standpoint. There's no bad news in this at all that I can see, so. Thank you very much to Commissioner Warren and Commissioner Klug and Bill, you and your team. So thank you. Nobody wants to come forward?
The only thing I would add, Don, was it was a debate to me as to whether you do the decrease. In fact, I challenged Bill on it at a couple of meetings. Do you do the increase and avoid the additional hearings? And I don't think that's the issue. I think we're just showing the state we're trying to do the best that we can to be in compliant with your tests. Now, there is bad news in the budget because there were 18 requests for additional employees that did not get filled, plus money that was removed from budgets that was asked for. And that was closely scrutinized and very well done by your budget team as well as by Dave. He must have done it, I didn't. By sorting through all the requests, it's no easy or small deal. And so thank you very much.
Other comment that I have, and I know, and again, I thank everyone for all of this too, because I know how much work goes into this and trying to figure all this out, put it together, work with all the state statutes, everything that limits or impacts how a county can do a budget and everything. And even though, I guess what I probably said every year that I've been up here, even though we've held the levy constant for every year I've been on this board, and then this year we're actually reducing it some, every one of those years, the taxpayers' taxes still have gone up. And they go up because the good and the bad here, the good is the values of the property in the county are doing well. They're assessed higher. So the assessment goes up. If the levy doesn't go down, taxes are going to go up. But we're only that small portion, like Bill pointed out. We're at 12.2%. And if you just look at the county impact, the property tax impact that we have, and that was based off of a house at $200,000 in fiscal year 2022, fiscal year 2023, because of assessed value and growth in the county. That house is now $213,800. So, and then we've dropped the change in the levy was 0.01194. I guess that's just less than a penny, or more than a penny. And you talk about a change in total of $15.44. The taxes still have gone up $15.44 based on that $213,000 house. Now you take into consideration all the other taxing authorities that make up that dollar bill that was presented, and don't know what their budgets are, don't know what their increases are, but I would guarantee you that most of them are going to be an increase as well. So what we're always up against is trying to balance everything as best we can, and with the current state of the high or the strong market that we have for real estate in the Omaha metro area, and everything, we are again trying to balance everything, but you can't always do that. Again, the good part is the values are up, but taxes are up as well because they follow what we have to put out as an assessed value. And again, all the budgets, and I truly believe everyone is trying to work those budgets as best they can so the impact isn't too much for our taxpayers. And especially, unfortunately, the taxpayers that get hurt the most are the older taxpayers that are on fixed incomes. And then the other side of it is the younger people that are trying to buy houses and everything. There's just a lot that goes into this, and unfortunately, we're only a small part of it, and we don't have all the answers to everything else that's happening in our economy and everything. But I think we're at least we're in a county that's growing. It would be much more difficult if we were going the other way. And so I think looking at it, and I've always said to the people that come up to me, a lot of them are, just don't raise my taxes. I'm trying not to raise your taxes, but we can't control everything. And but I do also get a lot of people that are involved and watch everything, and they understand that the services that the county provides as well are tremendous. There's tremendous value. You know, you got to look at the whole picture here. You can't get anything for nothing, but we have to just try to spend the money as best we can so it all works.
Okay, last call. Anybody want to address the board. Okay, I'll just, one last comment here. I appreciate what the legislature's trying to do under LB 644. I think it's great to have transparency in the budget process. But I personally wouldn't be opposed to going to a hearing and letting people know about the amount of underfunded or unfunded mandates that the state drops down on local governments, because that's something I think we need to inform the public about and put on our legislative agenda. The last numbers I had for Sarpy County were in the vicinity of $10 million a year, and that runs the gamut from paying the costs of state employees to providing housing and rental space, salaries, incarceration of inmates, and other things. So, again, I think we started talking about that over the last couple of years in earnest down in Lincoln during the legislative session, and I think NACO is going to provide us some top cover on this, and I think we got to keep that momentum going. And these hearings, although we don't have to be there, would probably be a good platform to make sure that that message gets sent out too, because it impacts our business, the way we do things here in the county, and the kinds of services we can support. What we could do with $10 extra million a year, you know, we could build roads and other things that really improve the amenities and quality of life of our citizens. So, thanks again, Bill, for everything on this, and to your staff. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the assessor getting to work, collecting all the data, and feeding it into the process. So, unless anybody else has had a change of heart, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and move on into the agenda, which would be executive session, which I don't believe we need to have one. So, having said that, I'll skip right to the best part and say that all agenda items have been addressed as published, and this public hearing is adjourned.